Here's a little history for you. Gun control in America is rooted in racism. That's right. The modern gun control movement is just today's version of the exact policies used to keep firearms out of the hands of freed slaves after the Civil War. Like we showed you last episode, gun control doesn't harm the powerful, connected, protected people who push for it.
Gun control has absolutely nothing to do ideologically with the control of firearms. If you do even a most cursory look at history between guns and gun ownership, you will find that without question, gun laws were created to restrict gun ownership from certain classes of people.
The 1968 Gun Control Act is an attempt to stop poor people from buying guns, poor people who were disproportionately black.
The so-called Saturday night special bans. These firearms, although they did not have fine workmanship and that they were inexpensive, they were still available to be used to defend yourself and to defend your home. And one of the most interesting things about these laws that were put on the books to discriminate against black people is that these are the common anti-gun laws that politicians this very day in the year 2016 try to adopt and to prevent certain people from owning a firearm.
So yeah, I think there's a racist component in the existing gun control movement, but they don't say that openly because you can't say things like that.
I don't by any stretch of the imagination believe that gun control has kept the black community safe. And the reason why I don't believe that is the same reason why I don't think gun control has kept the white community safe.
The racist roots of gun control have been so well hidden by the mass media and public education system that you've probably never heard any of that before. But it's the truth. The tender-hearted do-gooders of the contemporary movement are still serving that same racist end. This isn't a minor, uncomfortable truth about American gun control. It's the one fact that discredits the movement entirely.
Colorado Democrats reach back into their past for their new gun control measures, but instead of basing it on racism, they're basing it on classism. Welcome to another installment of the Connecticut Gun Bench. Today's video is brought to you by P.A.N. Firearms, LLC. P.A.N. Firearms for NRA certification and multifaceted gun training. You can reach us at 203-300-6343 or use our website at www.panfirearmsllc.com. As always, there'll be a link in the description box below. And if you like the channel, like the content and what I do here, you can support me with the link. Everything is appreciated. And for my Connecticut residents, you plan on getting your Connecticut pistol permit, get that training done before July 2024. We're in March. Step up. Get it done soon, because after that, it's going to get longer, harder, more expensive. If you have your permit, watch the expiration date. Don't let it expire. There is a link to the online renewal portal for the state of Connecticut in the description box. Keep an eye on that. Let's talk about this. And this is coming out of the state of Colorado. What they're proposing is an excise tax in addition to state sales taxes, in addition to federal excise tax on firearms. They're proposing more taxes on top. And they're talking about 11%. So after you've paid the federal excise tax on the firearm, which already exists, and you pay the state taxes, you're going to pay an additional 11% for firearms-related devices. I'm going to read you the bill so you understand exactly what's going on out there. Okay, this is HB 24-1349. Subject to voter approval at the November 2024 general election beginning April 1st, 2025, the bill levies an excise tax on firearms dealers, firearm manufacturers, and ammunition vendors at the rate of 11% of the gross taxable sales from the retail sale of any firearm precursor part, or ammunition in the state, and allows the state to collect and spend all revenue generated by the tax, notwithstanding any limitations in Section 20 of Article 10 of the state constitution, or any other provision of law. Such retail sales to peace officers and law enforcement agencies are exempt from the excise tax. Once again, creating special classes in the Constitution. That is literally an affront to the wording of the Constitution. Okay? You don't get a break because you just happen to be in a specific group. In addition, such retail sales made during any month are exempt from the excise tax if the total amount of gross taxable sales made by the firearms dealer, firearms manufacturer, or ammunition vendor during the month are less than $2,000, which I don't know anybody can stay in business making $2,000 a month, but every firearms dealer, firearms manufacturer, and ammunition vendor engaged in the retail sale of firearms, firearm precursor parts, or ammunition in the state is required to file a return and remit the excise tax due on a monthly basis, provide specific information to the Department of Revenue in the return, and maintain specific records that must be available for inspection by the department. Now, this is where I want to get into this because it's going to show you how they tried to word this to get around certain things that are happening. But allocation of tax revenue. The bill requires all money received and collected in payment of the excise tax to be transmitted for ultimate deposit in the Firearms and Ammunition Excise Tax Cash Fund created in the bill. All such money and any fund investments earnings must then be transferred as followed. The first $45 million in the first fiscal year and that amount as adjusted for inflation or deflation in each fiscal year thereafter must be transferred to the Colorado Crime Victim Services Fund in the Division of Criminal Justice Division of the Department of Public Safety for Crime Victim Services grants. The next $5 million in each fiscal year must be transferred to the Victims and Witnesses Assistance and Law Enforcement Fund for local judicial districts. The next $5 million in each fiscal year must be transferred to the Victim Services Fund for Mass Tragedy Response and Prevention Programs, except that any money that is transferred but not spent or encumbered for that person's in the given fiscal year may be used by the division for additional crime victim services grants. The next $4 million each fiscal year must be transferred to the Wildlife Cash Fund in the Division of Parks and Wildlife of the Department of Natural Resources for administration and enforcement of wildlife laws against the illegal use of firearms. The next $2 million in each fiscal year must be transferred to the Wildlife Cash Fund for programs to support shooting and shooting range safety, and any remaining money in each fiscal year must be transferred to the Victim Services Fund for Crime Victim Services grants. Okay, let me come out of that. Now, why did they talk? Now, I'm going to focus on this a little bit. The reason why the allocation and distribution of these tax funds is so very specific and leans towards victims of violence and gun violence and what have you is because of what happened in Illinois. Illinois did the same thing. They put an excise tax in addition to the state tax on firearms and ammunition, and their Supreme Court struck it down. And the reason why the Supreme Court struck it down, they didn't say because you can't do it. It's just they felt, well, you're not telling us what you're doing with the money. So as long as that's out in the air, we're not going to prove, this is not kosher. We're not going to let it go. That's why you see these, like California just did. California did the same thing. And once again, they worded it very carefully to say, yeah, we're using the money for victims of crime. So technically what's happening here is that good gun owners are being made to pay for the criminals. The criminals aren't going to buy, do you think criminals go to the store and buy the guns there to pay the 11%? No, of course they don't. But if they use that firearm to hurt someone else, the law-abiding public now has to front the money in the situation. That's exactly what they're trying to do here. And once again, I said in the beginning, the Democrats are hearkening back to their days of old. Okay? You got to remember, in order to understand all this, you got to understand gun control. Gun control got its roots in racism. Period. That's where it started from. That's exactly where it started from. The slave code laws of the 1700s, the black code laws of the 1800s, all of which forbade black people from owning firearms, whether they were slaves at the time or free men. This is where this all comes from. Now, to make an example of it, Florida, for example, passed a law that says that no black person, free or otherwise, can keep a firearm in their home or any firearms-related devices. They could be seized by technically a white person. That was 1825, 1833, 1847, and 1866. But what happened in 1866, that was after the Civil War. So they reworded it a little bit to say no slave, nor free man, mulatto, so forth and so on. They kind of changed the language a little bit to fit in because remember, the 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868, which made then free men, free black men, citizens. But this is the same thing. Now, it's not based on racism, but it's based on classism, because this is going to price out a gun out of the reach of a lot of people. You got a gun, let's just round it off. A gun's $500. You're paying an additional $100 in taxes on top of everything else. Most people really can't afford that. Who can afford that? The wealthy. It's elite classism. Because you think these Democrats are going to give up their security and make them pay it? No, they've already exempted them. Why? Because that's their protection. They're literally using an old racist trope and making it about class. If you have enough money, this isn't really going to affect you. But if you don't, it's going to hurt like hell. That's what this is about, and it's disgusting. And people have to understand history. Go back and look at history to understand what they're doing now. Because a lot of what they're doing now is the same things that they were doing in the 1800s. Democrats. This is what they did in the 1800s. But it applied only to black people. When you hear Joe Biden say, when the Second Amendment was written, not everyone could own a gun, he's right. He's absolutely correct. Because only black people were denied that right. Slavery, through the Civil War, Emancipation Proclamation, 14th Amendment. Throughout all that, black people were not allowed to own guns in southern states. They were massively restricted. This is just another way of doing it, but instead of race, as I said, they're using class. How much money you got? Because you got enough money, this really doesn't hurt you that much. But if you're, with this damn inflated Bidenomics bullshit we're dealing with, this kind of stuff is going to hurt you. Every time you go to buy a box of ammunition, you got 11% tax on it. The only plus in this is the people get to decide. It's not going to be a legislative thing. The people get to vote on it. And I hope Colorado gun owners, you cannot just ignore this and just walk away from it and just shrug your shoulders. This has a direct effect on you. Get out to the polls. As a matter of fact, you need to vote out some of these people that are in your legislature for even coming up with something like this. But let me know what you think. As always, you can leave your comments in the comment section below. And as always, any statements of violence or statements that lead to violence will be removed. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you're notified the next time a video goes live. I will see you on the next one. Peace.